Today we are talking about something everyone in this niche promises, and almost nobody explains properly. The secret to sounding like a native speaker in 30 days. No magic tricks, no fake promises, just a clear plan you can start using right after this video. Let's get into it. First, let's clear up a huge misunderstanding. Sounding like a native speaker does not mean losing your accent completely. Even native speakers have accents. A person from Texas sounds different from a person in London, and both are native speakers. So if your goal is to erase your accent 100%, you are chasing the wrong target, and honestly that target does not even exist for most people. What actually makes someone sound native is not the absence of an accent, it is the presence of natural rhythm, natural flow, and natural word choices. That is the real secret, and it is something you can absolutely train in 30 days if you focus on the right things. Here is what most learners do wrong. They spend years memorizing vocabulary lists and grammar rules, but they never train their mouth, their ear, or their rhythm. It is like studying music theory for 10 years without ever touching an instrument. You can know every chord on paper, but the moment you try to play, your fingers do not move naturally. English fluency works the same way. Your brain can know the rules perfectly, but your mouth still needs training to produce the sounds, the stress, and the flow that make speech sound alive instead of robotic. So what is this training exactly? Let's break it into 4 real components. Once you understand these 4 things, the 30-day plan will make complete sense, and you will know exactly why each exercise works. The first component is stress and rhythm. English is what linguists call a stress-timed language. This means some words in a sentence get hit harder, longer, and clearer, while other words almost disappear. Think about the sentence. I want to go to the store. A native speaker does not pronounce every word with equal weight. It sounds more like, I want to go to the store, with the stress landing hard on want and store and everything else shrinking down. If you pronounce every single word with the same weight and the same length, your speech sounds mechanical, even if your grammar is flawless. This is one of the biggest reasons advanced learners still sound foreign after years of study. They know the words, but they never trained the music behind the words. The second component is connected speech. This is where words blend into each other instead of standing alone like bricks in a wall. Native speakers link the last sound of one word to the first sound of the next word constantly. Did you eat becomes did ya eat, give me becomes gimme, want to becomes wanna, going to becomes gonna. These are not lazy shortcuts, they are the natural result of fast, relaxed speech. If you learned English by reading textbooks that spell everything out perfectly, your ear was never trained to expect this blending, and your mouth was never trained to produce it. That is why native speech can sound impossibly fast. Even though it is not actually faster, it is just connected differently than what you practiced. The third component is thinking in English instead of translating. This one is mental, not physical, but it affects your speed and your natural word choice more than anything else. When you translate in your head from your native language, you often build sentences that are grammatically correct but sound strange, because you are using structures and word orders borrowed from another language. Natives do not translate, they think directly in chunks of English, ready-made phrases that they pull out automatically. Phrases like, it depends, no worries, let me think about it, I guess so. These are not built word by word in real time, they are stored as complete units and pulled out instantly. Training this skill means you stop building sentences like a chemistry experiment and start using ready-made blocks like a native speaker does. The fourth component is exposure through active listening, specifically through a technique called shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say almost at the same time, copying their rhythm, their pauses, their intonation, and their pronunciation as closely as possible. This is different from passive listening, where you just hear English in the background while doing something else. Passive listening helps a little, but shadowing rewires your mouth muscles and your ear together, because you are producing the sounds at the same time you are hearing them. This is one of the fastest ways to absorb natural rhythm, and it is going to be a core part of our 30-day plan. Now that you understand these 4 pillars, let's talk about the actual 30-day plan. I am going to break it into 4 weeks, each one building on the last. So by day 30, you have trained your ear, your mouth, your mindset, and your real conversation skills together. Week 1 is the foundation week. The goal here is awareness. Most learners have never actually noticed the difference between how they speak and how natives speak, because nobody ever pointed it out clearly. In week 1, you pick 5 short native audio clips, ideally 30 seconds to 1 minute long, from podcasts, YouTube interviews, or movie scenes. You listen to each clip 5 times without looking at the transcript, just training your ear to catch the general flow. Then on the 3rd or 4th day, you bring in the transcript and you mark every place where words got linked together, where sounds disappeared, and where certain words got stressed harder than others. This step feels slow, but it is incredibly powerful because you are training your brain to notice patterns it ignored for years. By the end of week 1, your ear should already start catching connected speech that used to sound like mumbling. Week 2 is the rhythm and shadowing week. This is where the real physical training begins. Every day, you pick one short clip around 20 to 30 seconds, and you shadow it at least 10 times. The first few times, you will feel clumsy, and that is completely normal. Nobody sounds smooth on the first attempt. Play the clip, pause, repeat exactly what you heard, then play it again and try to speak at the same time as the recording, matching the rhythm as closely as you can. Record yourself doing this with your phone. I know this feels uncomfortable. Almost everyone hates hearing their own voice. But this step is non-negotiable if you want real progress, because your ear catches mistakes in your recording that it never catches while you are speaking live. Compare your recording to the original clip and notice where your rhythm differs. Are you stressing the wrong words? Are you pronouncing every word with equal weight instead of letting some words shrink? By day 14, you should notice your mouth moving more naturally through phrases you once found awkward. Week 3 is the connected speech and chunking week. Here we shift focus slightly. Instead of only shadowing full clips, you start collecting and practicing common spoken chunks, the kind of phrases natives use constantly without thinking. Chunks like, I was gonna say, that makes sense, kind of, sort of, no big deal. I mean, you know what I mean, let me get back to you. Write down 10 new chunks every day from the content you are watching. And instead of translating them, practice saying them out loud in different short sentences until they roll off your tongue automatically. This week is also when you start speaking a little more freely, not just repeating, but building your own short sentences using the chunks you collected, saying them out loud, and recording yourself again to compare progress from week 2. Week 4 is the real conversation week, and this is where everything comes together. By now, your ear is sharper, your mouth has more natural rhythm, and you have a growing bank of natural chunks ready to use. In week 4, you focus on real speaking practice, ideally with another person, whether that is a language exchange partner, a tutor, or even a conversation app where you talk to real people. If you truly cannot find a partner, you can also do this by describing your day out loud to your phone, telling short stories, or answering imaginary interview questions, but real human conversation is always more effective if it is available to you. The key rule for week 4 is speed over perfection. Do not stop to fix small grammar mistakes while speaking. Let the sentence flow. Keep the rhythm alive, and correct yourself only after the sentence is finished, if at all. Natives make small mistakes constantly, and nobody notices, because the flow and rhythm matter far more than grammatical perfection in real-time conversation. Let's talk about how to structure your daily practice so this plan actually fits into a normal life. Because 30 days sounds intense if you imagine hours of study every single day. But that is not what we are asking here. 20 to 30 minutes a day, done consistently, beats 2 hours once a week every single time, because pronunciation and rhythm are physical skills, and physical skills need frequent repetition, not occasional long sessions. A simple daily structure looks like this: 5 minutes of pure listening to your chosen clip, without repeating, just absorbing. 10 minutes of shadowing practice, repeating out loud, recording yourself at least once. 5 minutes reviewing your recording and comparing it to the original. 5 to 10 minutes practicing your collected chunks or having a short conversation if it is a conversation day. That is it. 25 to 30 minutes every day for 30 days. Now let's talk about tools. Because having the right raw material makes a massive difference. For listening and shadowing material, choose content that is close to your current level, not too advanced, not too easy. If you understand around 80% of what is being said without a transcript, that content is in your ideal zone. Podcasts made for learners are great in the beginning, but by week 2 or 3, try shifting toward real native content, like YouTube interviews, TV show clips, or short segments from native podcasts, because your final goal is understanding and matching real native speech, not simplified learner speech. Subtitles can help in week 1 for noticing patterns, but during your actual shadowing practice, try turning them off, because reading text while speaking can actually slow down your ear training. Let's address a mistake almost every learner makes at some point, which is obsessing over perfect pronunciation of individual sounds while completely ignoring rhythm and stress. Many learners spend enormous energy trying to perfect a single difficult sound, like the English R or the thought sound, and they treat this as the main obstacle to sounding native. In reality, rhythm and stress carry far more weight in how native your speech sounds than any single sound does. You could pronounce every individual sound with a slight accent and still sound remarkably native if your rhythm, stress, and connected speech are strong. On the other hand, you could pronounce every individual sound perfectly and still sound foreign if your rhythm is flat and mechanical. This does not mean pronunciation of individual sounds does not matter at all. It simply means it should not be your main focus, especially in a 30-day sprint, where rhythm training gives you the fastest visible results. Another common mistake is avoiding speaking out loud because of fear of making mistakes or sounding silly. This fear is completely normal. Almost every learner feels it, but it is also the single biggest thing holding people back from real progress. Speaking out loud, especially shadowing and recording yourself, feels uncomfortable at first because you are hearing your own voice attempt sounds in rhythms that feel unfamiliar. This discomfort fades quickly with repetition, usually within the first week, and the learners who push through this initial awkward phase are the ones who see real results by day 30. The learners who avoid speaking out loud because it feels embarrassing are the ones who, 6 months later, still sound exactly the same as they do today. A third mistake is inconsistency, doing an intense 2-hour session on Monday and then nothing for the rest of the week. As we mentioned earlier, rhythm and pronunciation are physical skills similar to learning an instrument or a sport. Your mouth muscles, your ear, and your brain need frequent short repetitions to build new automatic patterns. A single long session creates temporary awareness, but does not build lasting muscle memory. 30 short daily sessions will always outperform 4 long weekly sessions, even if the total time invested is similar, because consistency builds neural pathways more effectively than intensity alone. Let's also talk about mindset, because this affects your results just as much as the technical exercises do. Many learners silently believe that sounding native is reserved for people who started learning as children, or people with some special natural talent for languages. This belief is not only false, it is actively harmful, because it gives your brain permission to stop trying before you even begin. Thousands of adult learners have transformed their spoken English dramatically using focused, consistent practice, not natural talent, not childhood exposure, simply consistent, correctly targeted practice like the plan we just outlined. Your brain remains capable of building new automatic speech patterns well into adulthood. The process simply requires more deliberate practice than it did as a child, and that is exactly what structured shadowing and rhythm training provides. Let's walk through a realistic example of how this plan feels in practice, so you can picture your own 30 days clearly. Imagine you choose a 30-second clip from a native English podcast about daily habits. On day 1, you listen to it 5 times without the transcript, catching the general topic and tone, noticing that certain words seem to blend together but not yet understanding exactly how. On day 2, you read the transcript and mark where the speaker links words together, where certain sounds disappear, and where the stress falls hardest. On day 3 and 4, you continue listening and marking, maybe switching to a second short clip to keep your ear engaged with fresh material. By day 5, you attempt your first shadowing session, pausing constantly, feeling awkward, but completing at least 10 repetitions and recording your final attempt. When you listen back, you notice you stressed almost every word equally, sounding flat compared to the original. This is completely normal, and exactly what week 1 is designed to reveal. Moving into week 2, you shadow daily, and by day 10, your recording starts sounding noticeably closer to the original clip's rhythm. You notice yourself naturally letting small words like to and of shrink down instead of pronouncing them fully, without even consciously trying, simply because your mouth has repeated the pattern enough times to start automating it. By day 14, you choose a new clip and notice something interesting. This new clip feels slightly easier to shadow than the first one did, because your ear and mouth have started generalizing the rhythm patterns rather than only memorizing one specific clip. In week 3, you start collecting chunks daily, noticing phrases repeating across different videos and podcasts. Phrases like, at the end of the day. To be honest, it turns out, I guess, you practice building your own short sentences with these chunks, saying them out loud multiple times each, and by day 21, using these chunks in conversation feels noticeably more automatic than before, requiring less mental translation effort. By week 4, you schedule 2 short conversation sessions with a language partner, focusing entirely on flow rather than perfection, allowing small grammar mistakes to pass without stopping the conversation. By day 30, when you record a final sample of yourself speaking freely for 1 minute and compare it to your very first recording from day 5, the difference is often dramatic, not because your accent disappeared completely, but because your rhythm, stress, and connected speech now flow naturally instead of sounding mechanical and disconnected. This transformation is exactly why we call this the secret, not because it is hidden or mysterious, but because almost nobody explains it clearly, and almost nobody structures a realistic plan around it. Most advice online simply says, practice speaking more, without explaining what specifically to practice or how to structure that practice for maximum results in a limited time frame. Before we wrap up, let's cover a few practical tips that will make your 30 days significantly more effective. First, always record yourself even when it feels uncomfortable, because your ear catches details in a recording that it misses during live speech. And comparing recordings over time gives you clear, motivating proof of your progress. Second, choose content you genuinely find interesting, because 30 days of daily practice becomes significantly harder to sustain if the material bores you, while genuinely interesting content makes the daily habit feel far less like a chore. Third, do not switch clips too frequently. Staying with the same clip for several days allows your mouth and ear to deeply absorb its specific rhythm before moving to new material, building a stronger foundation than constantly jumping between fresh clips. Fourth, track your practice daily. Even something as simple as a checkmark on a calendar creates a small psychological reward that reinforces the habit and helps you notice patterns, like which days you skip most often, so you can adjust your schedule accordingly. One more important point. 30 days is a powerful starting sprint, but it is not a finish line. The habits, techniques, and awareness you build during these 30 days are meant to continue afterward, ideally becoming a permanent part of how you consume English media and practice speaking going forward. Many learners who complete an intense 30-day sprint like this one find that continuing shadowing and chunk collection at a lighter pace, maybe 3 or 4 times a week instead of daily, keeps their progress moving steadily forward for months afterward, compounding the results they built during the initial sprint. If you are watching this and thinking your current level is too low for this method, this plan actually works at almost any level, from upper beginner through advanced. The only adjustment needed is choosing appropriately leveled listening material and being patient with slower initial progress. If you are working with more limited vocabulary, the underlying mechanism, training rhythm, connected speech, mental chunking, and active shadowing remains identical regardless of your starting point. So here is your clear action plan starting today. Choose your first short native audio clip right now, something 30 seconds to 1 minute long that genuinely interests you. Listen to it 5 times today without looking at any transcript. Tomorrow, find the transcript and mark the stress, the linking, and the reductions. Continue building from there exactly as we outlined across the 4 weeks. Commit to 25 to 30 minutes daily, record yourself weekly at minimum to track your progress honestly, and trust the process even during the uncomfortable early days when your recordings sound flat and mechanical, because that discomfort fades quickly with consistent practice. Let's go a little deeper into why this method works from a learning science perspective, because understanding the why will make you far more likely to stick with the how. Speech production is fundamentally a motor skill, meaning it depends on tiny, precise, coordinated movements of your tongue, lips, jaw, and vocal cords repeated thousands of times until they become automatic. This is the same category of skill as playing guitar, typing on a keyboard, or shooting a basketball. Nobody expects to shoot a perfect free throw after reading a book about basketball technique, yet many language learners expect fluent, natural pronunciation to appear simply from reading grammar rules and memorizing vocabulary lists. Motor skills are built through repetition under feedback, which is exactly what shadowing and recording provide. Every time you shadow a clip and compare your recording to the original, you are giving your brain a feedback loop, and feedback loops are what allow motor patterns to adjust and improve over time. Without feedback, repetition alone is far less effective because you could be repeating the same mistake 1,000 times without ever noticing it. This is precisely why silent reading practice, or years of grammar study, often fail to produce natural-sounding speech, while 30 days of structured, feedback-based shadowing can produce a noticeable transformation. There is also a common question that comes up constantly. Should you use movies, TV shows, podcasts, or dedicated learning apps for this kind of practice? Each format has its own strengths. Movies and TV shows offer visual context, emotional tone, and natural dialogue, but the audio quality sometimes includes background music or sound effects that make precise shadowing harder, especially in action scenes. Podcasts, especially interview-style podcasts, usually offer cleaner audio and more natural, unscripted speech patterns, which makes them excellent for shadowing practice. Dedicated learning apps often provide clearer audio and adjustable playback speed, which can help in the very early days when native speed feels overwhelming, but they sometimes use scripted, slightly unnatural sentences that do not fully represent real spoken rhythm. My honest recommendation for this 30-day plan is to start with podcasts or YouTube interviews for your core shadowing material and use movies or TV shows as supplementary listening practice, simply enjoying them without the pressure of active shadowing, letting your ear soak in natural rhythm passively alongside your active daily practice. Another frequent question is whether music can help with this process, and the honest answer is that music helps with rhythm awareness in a general sense, but it is not a substitute for shadowing spoken dialogue, because sung rhythm follows melody rather than natural speech stress patterns. Feel free to enjoy English music as part of your overall exposure, but keep your dedicated daily practice time focused on spoken content, since spoken rhythm and sung rhythm train slightly different skills. Let's also address what to do if you hit a plateau partway through the 30 days. Because this happens to many learners, usually somewhere around day 12 to day 16. The initial excitement of noticing patterns for the first time fades, and progress can feel slower and less obvious during the middle stretch. This plateau is completely normal and does not mean the method has stopped working. Motor skill development often follows a pattern of visible early gains, a quieter middle period where changes happen internally without dramatic external signs, and then another noticeable jump forward once enough repetitions accumulate. If you hit this plateau, resist the urge to abandon the plan or constantly switch techniques. Instead, keep your daily sessions consistent. Consider switching to a slightly different clip to refresh your motivation without changing your actual method. And trust that the quieter middle days are still building real progress beneath the surface. Measuring your progress accurately also matters a great deal for staying motivated throughout the 30 days. Beyond simply comparing your day 5 recording to your day 30 recording, consider tracking a few specific markers along the way. Notice how many times you need to pause and think before speaking a common phrase. This pause frequency should decrease steadily as your chunk bank grows. Notice whether you catch connected speech in new, unfamiliar audio more easily over time. This indicates your ear training is generalizing beyond your specific practice clips. Notice whether native speakers or fluent friends comment on your speech sounding smoother or more natural. External feedback from real conversations often confirms progress that can be hard to judge purely from your own recordings. Let's also expand slightly on the chunk collection process from week 3, since this step often gets underestimated despite being incredibly powerful. Beyond simply writing down phrases you hear, try organizing your chunks into small categories, such as chunks for agreeing, chunks for disagreeing politely, chunks for buying time while thinking, chunks for expressing surprise, and chunks for softening opinions. Categorizing this way makes your collected phrases far easier to retrieve naturally during real conversation, because your brain can pull from a relevant category based on the social situation rather than searching through one giant unsorted list. Examples of buying time chunks include, "Let me think about that. That is a good question. Give me a second." Examples of softening opinion chunks include, "I could be wrong, but it seems to me that from what I understand." Practicing these chunk categories out loud daily, even for just a few minutes, builds a flexible, natural-sounding conversational toolkit far faster than memorizing isolated vocabulary words ever could. Finally, let's talk briefly about combining this plan with your existing English studies. Since many of you watching are probably also working through grammar courses, vocabulary apps, or formal classes alongside this rhythm-focused training, there is no conflict here at all. In fact, these approaches complement each other perfectly. If this video helped you, subscribe to English Speak Lab for more practical, no-nonsense lessons designed to get you speaking real, natural English faster. Drop a comment telling me which day you are starting your 30-day challenge, and check back in the comments to update your progress. I genuinely want to see how far you get. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.